Hungarian Folk Tales. The Dyer's Apprentice. Once upon a time, there lived a woodcutter with his wife. On a fine spring morning, the woman gave birth to a baby boy. By the time the lad turned 13 years of age, the woodcutter died. The boy and his mother were very poor. Finally, the young boy walked into the village looking for a job. There he came upon a dyer who hired him as an apprentice. He earned only very little as an apprentice, but he always gave every penny to his mother. Suddenly one morning he turned to his mother. "Mother, I had a dream last night." "Tell me all about it, my son." "I cannot talk about my dream before it is time, even if my life depends on it," he said. "Well, all right." In the morning the boy went to see his master, told him that he had had a dream, but he never revealed what his dream was about. The master got angry and started beating his apprentice. The boy ran out to the street, but the master rushed after him with a whip in his hand. At that very moment in time, the king was passing by in his gilded carriage, and he called to the master, "Hey you, why are you beating that young man?" The master told the king everything one by one. Finally, the king ordered him to hand over the boy to him, and he would find out what the dream was all about. Once they got to the king's court, the young lad was literally bathed in milk and honey. 3 weeks later, the king summoned the boy and asked him how he liked being in the palace. "I quite like it here," replied the boy. "Well, you see, son, I am trying my best to please you," said the king. "What about pleasing me a little?" "Oh, your majesty, I will do whatever I can to please you, but what can I do if it isn't possible?" "All right then, all you should do is tell me what you dreamt the other night." "Oh, your majesty, that is an impossible task, because even if you take my life, I cannot reveal my dream to you before it comes true." And so it went on and on for 7 years, but all was in vain. Finally, the king lost all hope and patience and had the boy walled in. In the meantime, the king's daughter also grew up to be a beautiful girl, and she fell in love with the boy. She stole a purse filled with gold coins from her father and gave it to the bricklayer. She instructed the man to leave a small opening in the wall. Through that small opening, she gave food to the young boy 3 times a day. She kept feeding him every day for another 7 years. In the meantime, the Turkish Sultan announced he wished to marry the princess, but the old king did not want to hear about it. The Sultan sent 3 identical donkeys to the king, asking him to identify the exact age of each animal. Otherwise, he would attack and destroy the king's country. The king was frightened and he ran around asking everybody for a solution, but nobody was able to tell the exact age of the donkeys. As the daughter was carrying lunch to the boy behind the wall one day, she told him what had happened. In the end, the boy told her not to worry. He told her to go home and sleep through the night. And when she awoke the next morning, she should tell her father the following: "Give the donkeys oats that are 1, 2, and 3 years old. The animals will eat the oats that correspond with their own age." And so it happened. The king was happy that he finally managed to save his country. But the Turk just couldn't rest. He wrote another letter to the king with the following message: "This time I am sending you a stick with bludgeons on both ends." He wrote, "If you cannot tell which is the upper and which is the lower end of the stick, I am going to have you decapitated." The king's joy suddenly turned to sorrow. In the meantime, the princess dreamt that if they tied a single hair around the middle of the stick and lifted it, the lower end, which was thicker, would bend towards the ground. They immediately sent a letter with the answer to the Sultan. The Sultan was so angry he nearly had a fit, but he could still not rest. He sent another letter plus 3 penknives asking the king to identify which of the knives belonged to a gentleman, a soldier, and to a peasant. Once again, the princess dreamed up the solution. She said that the knives should be stuck into the ground next to a burning fire. The one that smells like garlic belongs to a peasant. The one that smells of scent belongs to a gentleman. And finally, the one that oozes blood must belong to the soldier. The king was overjoyed and sent a letter to the Turkish Sultan. The Sultan never sent another letter. The king was curious to find out how his daughter always knew the right answers. Finally, his daughter confessed everything, and the king ordered his men to tear down the wall. Everyone was happy, and they held a magnificent wedding in the palace. As they were eating, the king once again asked the apprentice to tell him what his dream was all about. "This was my dream, Your Majesty," he said, pointing to his bride and the wedding ring, and they all lived happily ever after. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Poor Man and His Horse. Once upon a time, long ago and far away, there lived a poor man. Now he had 2 sons, and he had a grey horse. He was very poor and had to earn his bread by carting. Here and there he trudged with that grey horse of his, for that was the only way he could put food on the table. But the roads were so bad and very muddy. Now that grey horse had had enough of pulling the cart all by himself. Back he looked and said, "You're a good and kind owner, so will you buy a partner for me?" "You can speak?" "Of course I can, after all these years of learning how from you. So will you buy a partner for me?" "I would indeed, if only I had the money." "Do you know what? Let me loose and I'll get what we need." "How can I let you loose?" "If I do that, you'll never come back and you'll leave me here." "Die I won't for sure. You're my owner." So the man led him out of the stable, took the halter off him and let him go. The grey horse was very happy. Up went his tail, he whizzed around the yard once or twice, and off he went. The man was very worried. "That's a horse I'll never see back here again," he thought. Well, the grey horse headed off out of the village. Off he went up to the forest, and there he ate well from the greenest grass and came upon the sweet water of a bubbling spring. Then off he went to look around the forest. There he found the entrance to a fox's den. It looked good, so he snuggled himself into it, and there he fell asleep. Just then the vixen and her cubs woke up. It was coming time to go and find something to eat. So the vixen turned to her eldest cub and said, "Now, son, just go out and see what the weather's like outside." Off went the little fox, who got as far as the entrance to the den. He could see that everything had gone all white, so he quickly rushed back to tell the others. "Mother, we can't go out at all. There's been a big fall of snow, and it's blocked the way." That got him a slap on the ear from his mother, How can you say there's snow when we're right in the middle of summer? Out you go, she said to another of her cubs, and see what the weather's like outside. The second cub turned back and said to his mother, Mother, we can't go out at all. There's such a lot of snow. Thump, and he got one across his ear as well. The vixen sighed and she went up. She looked, and right enough, everything had gone all white. She sniffed the air, but it wasn't cold. She thought about it and dug out another entrance to the den. When she went out, what did she see, believe it or not, but a great big grey horse that had died and was lying at the entrance to the den. It couldn't have come to a better place to die. We'll pull it in somehow, and that will see us through the long days of winter. Now, it was all very well for her to plan, but she couldn't even move the horse. Oh dear, what was there to do? She thought about it, and off she went to see the wolf. Who's there? It's me, Brother Wolf. What can I do for your sister Fox? I bring you good news, brother. Just let me in. And the wolf let her in. Right. There's a big grey horse that has come and died at my front door, and I can't drag him away. So I thought that you're a big and strong creature, and the two of us can surely drag him off somewhere and have his meat for the winter. The wolf licked his lips, and off he went with the vixen. Once they got there, around they sniffed. They pushed and they pulled, but it didn't work. Sister Fox, you haven't got a good hold of it. Try to push. They tried and tried, but they couldn't manage. Then she spoke up. Do you know what we can do? We can tie your tail to the horse's tail. You pull away and I'll push. That's the only way we'll manage it. Fine, Sister Fox, said the wolf. So the wolf went around to the horse's tail, and the fox made a fine tight knot out of their two tails. Well, the wolf started pulling and pulled and pulled until it was out of breath. Push now, sister, push. I'll pull and you can push. Now the horse felt the wolf pulling hard on his tail. He woke up and jumped to his feet. He shook himself, started to race off, and there was the wolf still tied to his tail and swinging from left to right as they went. And when the horse was sure the wolf was well and truly dizzy, off he galloped towards the village. Once he arrived home, he let out a loud neigh. Out rushed his owner. He's home, thank heavens, my fine grey horse. He quickly opened the gate to the yard. Here you are, good master, said the horse. I've brought you this wolf, so you can have his fine fur and sell it, and with that, you can buy another horse. And that's what happened. They took the wolfskin to the market, and with the price, they bought another horse, and went their way with two horses, just like any other men. And they all lived happily ever after. And that's the end of my tale of a poor man and of the tale of his faithful horse. Hungarian Folk Tales. 7 at one blow. Once upon a time, long, long ago, there lived a tanner. Now this tanner had as many children as a sieve has holes, and even more. One day he was cooking porridge for his children. There was just enough for each to have a drop. It was hot. It was summertime, and a swarm of flies flew in through the window. And this sent the tanner into such a rage that he lifted his hand and brought it down hard on the table. He managed to get 7 of the flies at one and the same time. So he thought to himself, am I not a true and gallant knight to hit 7 at one blow? He made for himself a sign, and on it he wrote, 7 at one blow, and this he wore around his neck. Off he went to seek his way in the world, and eventually he came upon a well deep in the forest. So he lay himself down and slept. Just then came devils to sup from the water. One of these devils saw him and said, now this is a true and gallant knight. He's not a man to battle with. No sooner had he said this than the tanner woke up, and then the devil said, will you not come and serve us true? Your job will be to carry water in this bison skin. With that they went off to where the devils lived, in the infernal fire or somewhere deep in hell. And the devils drank the water up in a flash. So then the king of the devils said, what wages do you require? A load of gold carried home, and I will ride on top of it. And so the bargain was struck. They passed the man the bison skin. The poor man almost collapsed under the weight of it. He set out for the well. He wondered how he was going to be able to carry it back full when he could hardly manage to carry it when it was empty. So he got hold of a spade, and when he arrived, he started to dig around the well. Now the devils got fed up of waiting for him to come back with the water, so one of them upped and went off after him. Said the devil, what are you doing, tanner? I'm not going to come here back and forth and fetch water for you all the time. I'm going to bring the whole well in one go. No, don't do that. You see, my mother is blind and she's going to fall into the hole. I'll fetch the water for you. You fetch wood from the forest instead. And with this, they started off back. Then the devil led him to the forest to show him how much wood he had to gather up and bring back. The devil took the top of a tree and bent it down, and the tanner held on to it. Then the branch came loose from the devil's hand, and as the tree sprang back, it threw the tanner up and over the forest. Out sprang a rabbit from under the bush, and the tanner chased it. Asked the devil, now where are you running? After this rabbit, don't you see? I jumped across the forest for it, and I still couldn't catch it. Then the devil ran home and told the others, get rid of this tanner, because he's a bigger devil than any of us. The tanner said he wouldn't go away because there was a devil here stronger than him, and he pointed at one of the devils, saying he was the stronger one. And the devil said, I'm stronger than you. Come with me to the top of the hill. We'll take a whip with us and make it crack. Whoever makes the whip crack louder is surely the stronger of us too. The tanner said, I don't mind, but give me a club as well. When they got there, the devil said, you go first at cracking the whip. And no, said the tanner, you go first. The devil took the whip and cracked it so hard that the tanner went and fell over. I wanted to hold the end of the whip, but you were too fast for me. Now then, said the devil, it's really your go. Well, if it's my go, close your eyes, because when I do it, you'll go blind. The devil closed his eyes, and the tanner smacked him right on the head with a club. Then he asked, now who can crack the whip harder? And the devil said, you can crack it harder. You're a bigger devil than all of us. So they went back, and the devil said to the rest of them, take this tanner home right away. So they put the money into a big tub, and he sat on top of it. When he got home, his children came out and said, "Father, Father, how long is it since we last had the meat of a devil?" The devil emptied the tub, money, tanner and all, and ran off back to hell. "It's a good thing that we got rid of him," he told the other devils. "Even his children want to eat the meat of a devil." And that was the full of the story, from its head all the way to its tail. Hungarian Folk Tales. Angel Lambs. Once there lived a very poor man on the edge of the forest in his little hut with his wife and 3 sons. He earned his bread by cutting wood. Poor they were, and their life was hard. One day the man was working in the forest and had become very tired. He took out his satchel to eat the scone his wife had baked him in the ashes of the fire. While he was chewing away on his food, there came an old man. "What are you doing here, poor man?" "Just cutting some wood." "What's that you're eating?" "Nothing special, just a scone baked in the ashes. Won't you have a little for yourself?" "Listen, my man, have you a family?" 3 sons, but they're still small. "I need someone to serve me. I have a flock of sheep and it needs to be watched over. Give me your eldest son into service. 3 days he will work and 100 florins he will earn." Now the poor man went home very pleased and said to his son, "Listen, my boy, tomorrow you'll come with me to the forest and there you'll meet an old man who will take you into service." In the morning, his mother packed his satchel and off he went with his father to the forest. Hardly had they arrived when the old man came. He took the boy by the hand and led him away with him. Now they went deep into the forest until night fell. Then they came to a hut. "Now, son, here we are." Daylight came, the boy went out, and there he saw the fine flock of sheep. "This is the flock you are to watch over. Here's a staff for you to follow my lambkins. Here's a satchel for you so that you can bring back in it to me some of what they eat. And in it there's a flask for you to fill with whatever they drink from." So the lambs set off and made their way into the forest. The further they went in, the darker it became. Then they found a wide river before them and there was only a narrow plank to cross the river. The sheep set off, but their weight was such as to bend the plank until their bellies were in the water itself. Now this worried the lad. "I'll never be able to cross on that plank, it'll collapse under me." The last of the lambs came to rub against his leg. "Just climb onto my back, and I'll take you across." But the boy struck its back roughly with the staff, lay on his stomach, in the grass, and waited. Some time later, he heard the sound of their bells as they came back. The last of them came to him and rubbed against his leg. "Follow us." Then his master's request came to his mind. He gathered together a handful of grass for the satchel, put some water into the flask, and followed the flock home. When they arrived, the old man was waiting for them in his yard. "So, my boy, I see you've brought my lambkins home. Are they still all here?" "Yes, master." "Did you bring what they ate?" "Yes, master." "Did you bring what they drank?" "That too, master." "Let me have a look." "No, my boy, that's not what they ate, that's not what they drank, for these lambs of mine cannot live on this. You didn't do your proper service. Tomorrow I'll take your next brother." But his younger brother didn't fare any better, for he did exactly the same with the old man's flock. At home, the poor man spoke to the youngest of his sons. "Son, it's your turn. Tomorrow you'll come with me to the forest." The next day the old man was waiting for them. He took the boy by the hand and led him into the forest until it got dark. "Here, my boy, is where you will sleep." In the morning the old man came to knock on the door. The boy hung the satchel around his neck and sat off after the sheep. The sheep walked and walked along the edge of the forest. Once they went into the forest, everything got dark. In the middle of the forest it was so dark that the youngest boy was gripped by fear. All the more when they came to the river. "Oh, what will become of me if I cross the river as well?" One of the lambs came to rub against the boy's leg. "Child, sit on my back." So the boy sat on its back, and that's how they crossed the river. Once they were across, they went further and further into the dark until suddenly there was a great brightness in front of them. The boy had to rub his eyes, for there in the middle of the brightness was a chapel. The sheep quickly filed in. Once he was in, he saw the sheep shake themselves twice in front of the altar and change into angels. From a beautiful chalice they served themselves each bread and a little wine. Then they shook themselves once again and turned back into sheep. The last of them to turn into an angel had taken the boy's satchel, then took bread, poured some wine into his flask and put both into his satchel before setting off with the others towards home. When they reached the river, the boy got onto the sheep's back again, crossed over the plank and set off home tranquilly. The old man was waiting for them in the yard. "Now, child, are all the sheep here?" "All here, master." "Have they eaten?" "They have, master." "Have they drunk?" "They have, master." "Well then, show me your satchel and your flask. My child, I can see that you have served me faithfully, and so I grant you a wish as well as the 100 florins you have earned." And that was when the boy knew that the old man was the Lord himself, and the lambs his angels. So what he said was this: "Master, I would like to serve you always. My only wish is to be allowed to go home once to my parents to bid them farewell." And that is what happened. Home he went, bade goodbye to his father, his mother and his 2 brothers, handed over to them his wages and returned to the old man, whom he still serves to this very day. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Golden Lamb. Once upon a time, there lived a poor man and his son. When the boy grew up, his father sent him away to work and earn some money. Off he went and searched for a place where he could work until he finally found a farmer who hired him as a shepherd for his sheep. The next day, his new master handed him a flute and sent him out with a flock to see if he knew what to do. Unlike the other lazy shepherds, the young lad never rested for a minute and herded the sheep and played the flute all day long. Among the sheep was a lamb with a golden fleece. Whenever the young lad played his flute, it began to dance. The boy grew to like the lamb so much, he decided to ask for the golden lamb instead of wages. As night fell, he took the flock home. The farmer stood waiting for him at the gate, and when he saw that none of his precious sheep had gone astray and all had eaten well, he was a happy man indeed. The boy and his master began to debate his wages. The lad said he would like the golden lamb. The master liked the little animal very much, but eventually agreed to let the boy have it because he was willing to work very hard. A whole year passed by. The boy worked well for his master and was given the lamb as his prize. He set off home, but it began to get dark just as he walked into a village. The shepherd boy eventually sought shelter with a farmer who had a daughter who fell so in love with the golden lamb that she decided to steal the animal for herself. It was nearly midnight by the time the girl got her hands on the lamb, but as soon as she touched it, her hands stuck to its golden fleece. The boy woke the next morning and saw the young girl with her hands stuck to the lamb. He did not want to leave the lamb behind, so off he set with the lamb and the girl with her hands stuck to its golden fleece. The three of them danced until they reached the third neighbour's house, where a woman poked her head out and saw the young girl dancing and prancing with the lamb. She rushed outside with her oven shovel and shouted, "Get back home with you and stop making such a scene." The woman smacked her with the shovel. "I said to do as you were told." But the girl carried on dancing, so the woman hit her with her shovel, but it stuck to her behind, with the woman on the other end. The lamb pulled them both through the village, all the way to the church. The lamb started to dance with a girl stuck to its fleece, who had the shovel stuck to her behind, and the woman on the end. The priest was just returning from the church and scolded them bitterly for making such a scene, but to no avail. The priest took his stick and struck the woman's behind with it, and was surprised to see that his stick stuck to the woman's fat bottom and he was glued to the other end. The boy continued to trail them through the village, where a soldier passed with his horse. He touched the priest and got stuck too. Then a weaver came out with a roll of linen. He smacked the horse's flank, and the linen stuck to it in an instant. Then a cobbler appeared with his hands full of boots. He hit the weaver and cried, "What are you staring at?" And he too now was stuck to the procession. The boy blew on his flute, and the lamb went on dancing with the girl stuck to its behind, the shovel stuck to her bottom, the woman to the handle of the shovel, the stick to her bottom, with the priest stuck to the other end, followed by the soldier leading the horse, with the linen stuck to its flank, the weaver stuck to the linen, with the boots on his back, and the cobbler at the very end. And the boy just went on marching with his peculiar parade until he reached a town where everyone was in mourning. The houses and palaces were all covered in black, and the men and women were walking about in black clothes. At the edge of the town, the boy began talking to an old woman and asked her what had happened. The old woman sadly told him that the daughter of the king was seriously ill, and no medicine was strong enough to cure her. The doctors all said that if someone could make her laugh, she would soon be cured, but no one had managed to do it yet. The king declared that anyone who could make his darling daughter laugh could marry her and receive half of his kingdom as a gift of thanks. Of course, there were many people who all wanted to try their luck, princes, counts, and acrobats, from all kinds of nations and nationalities, but no one succeeded. No matter how hard they tried, the princess never even smiled, and they all ended up with their heads impaled on a pole. The next morning, the boy announced that he intended to make the princess laugh. The king was happy to hear the news and asked his daughter to stand outside. The young shepherd began to play his flute. The golden lamb went on dancing with the girl stuck to its fleece, with the shovel on her behind, and the woman stuck to the shovel, the stick on her fat bottom, with the priest stuck to the other end, followed by the soldier with his horse, with the linen stuck to its flank, the weaver stuck to the linen, with boots on his back, and the cobbler at the end of the line. When the princess saw this, she burst out laughing, and that made the golden lamb so happy that it shook everything and everyone off and began to dance alone. And then the girl began to dance, and then the woman, and then the priest, and then the soldier with his horse, and then the weaver, and even the cobbler. The king happily gave his blessing for the shepherd boy to marry his daughter. He gave the weaver and the cobbler royal warrants. He made the soldier his general and the priest his royal cardinal. The woman was promoted to royal baker, and the girl became the princess's maid. The wedding feast went on for a week and a day, and the whole kingdom celebrated the bride and groom. If the violin strings hadn't snapped, they would all still be dancing.